Who's got some great news, Laura Hutt? Why don't you take us off of mute and just give us a little inspiration. What happened on Friday with you?
Okay, after our conversation and we talked about the care call, I've been speaking with a seller in a particular subdivision who was going to do some work to the house, So I was scheduled to call her at the end of the month. And so I did call her and I said, this is not a real estate call. I'm just going to see how you are and what I can do for you. And we chatted, briefly. And then she went into real estate and she asked me, she says, well, with what's going on, is the market drastically changing? I said, no, it is not drastically changing. It is shifting. And the conversation took off from there. She told me the dishwasher is being delivered today, as a matter of fact, and the pool area and the pool are being repainted. And next Saturday, I've got a call into her, and then we are going to list the property, and it's in the $800,000 range.
885 to be exact.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So yeah.
So you gotta love that. So what was your aha that you took away from last week's call? Because I see David and Brandie just chimed in. We're gonna get to them in 30 seconds. So what advice did you hear on last week's call that you put into action to get this listing for 885?
It was the care call. It was just, don't make it about real estate, because I was concerned about being insensitive to the times as to what was going on. Like, hey, I want to list your house. So that was my aha, was really make it a care call. And it really was a care call, because I really was concerned, and then she took it from there and she went right into real estate. So I just followed.
Yeah. The best advice I can give you is for those of you who know me, you know how direct I am. Be extremely direct and say, today's call is not about real estate. Today's call is about you. How are you doing? Come from the heart, guys. That's what a care call is. I promise you, people are going to gravitate and ask you about real estate, even though you tell them it's not about real estate. They're going to hear the genuine you, the person that's coming from the heart. So with that being said, so I'd like to, if everybody can mute themselves except for Brandie and David, if you guys can unmute yourselves, and I just want to have a conversation. First of all, how are you doing, both of you?
Great. Doing good. Thank you. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We've got new office quarters. You can see our house has become our new office there. So this is just, it's a new way of living. It's a new way of doing business right now. So we've got to make the best of what we have. So I absolutely love that. So just so our audience can get to know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourselves as a husband-wife team and what you did in business last year? What did your business look like, the numbers?
Oh gosh. So we've been a husband and wife team for about 10 years. Prior to that, I was a single agent. And so we've got a team, like 15 people, I think, on our team. And last year we did about 192 transactions closed.
I love that you said 192. Most people would have said 190, 200. And you know what that, Brandie, it's because you know your numbers. I love that. I love that. So tell me, in this crazy times that we're experiencing right now that we call real estate, what changes have you made in your business, either David or Brandie? What changes have you made to adapt to this pivoting market that we're in?
Oh gosh, we've actually made several changes. Obviously, first and foremost, and I don't know about you guys, but even though the change has really only taken place over the last week, I feel like it's been like we've been in this for a month or two. But really, we've gone to pretty much everything being virtual. We've got all of our staff working from home, and we're doing virtual listing appointments, doing virtual showings. So as far as like the dynamics of the day-to-days, that's probably one of the biggest changes that we've made. And then, from the business side of things, we really have geared down and cut a lot of our expenses. So we, first and foremost, we were able to cut, was it like a little over 20% of our business expenses?
Wow.
Right out the gate. And then by that, we also have contingency plans in place. So every single month, we are cutting our expenses by 20%, depending on what the market is doing and what our pending GCI is looking like.
Gotcha. So yeah, there's a lot of information all in one breath there. Let's start off with, you said you're doing virtual listing appointments. Would either one of you be able to walk us through what that looks like from your perspective?
Sure, I'll do that since I'm currently doing it right now. Really what we do is we first are talking to the client that we're going to be having the appointment with, and being able to identify, instead of just assuming that they know how to do Zoom, we ask them, how familiar are you? Do you have a Gmail account? Do you have Skype? Do you know how to do Zoom? So we're talking to them about the methodology in which they would prefer to have a digital meeting. So, last week we did Skype, we did Zoom, and we did Google Hangouts. And it was all based off of the client's preference. And you can do screen share on those. And really what I do is, I ask them to be on a portable device, so either their tablet or their laptop. And I just ask them, do you mind giving me a virtual tour of your home? So that's the first thing that they do, is they walk me through the house. I'm asking questions as they're taking me through the home, but I'm getting a good feel for the condition of the home and some of the things that they might need to be doing. And then from there, I'm diving in and I'm doing my normal listing presentation. So I'm having a face-to-face conversation with them. And then when it gets to the point where I'm going over the data that I want to show them, then I do my screen share and I show them my presentation. We're being able to carry on with the dialogue from that standpoint. And then, once they're able and ready to move forward, then I'm sending them all of the listing paperwork for them to sign via DocuSign.
I love that. So Brandie, let me ask you this. You mentioned that you're using Google Hangouts, you're using Skype, you're using Zoom. Now, were you familiar with all three products before on how the techniques and how to utilize them? Or did you have to learn to do that in this adapting time?
Well, I knew how to do Google Hangouts and I knew how to do Zoom. Skype is something that's was not super familiar to me. So, I was actually, David and I was like, okay, I got a Skype meeting, so let's practice this and see if I'm connecting right. And so we would be able to just practice it together to make sure that I knew what buttons I needed to click and things like that. So I've had to learn some things that.
So Skype is just like, for those of you who don't know, is like the MySpace of social media. It was really big 10 years ago. And now with Google Hangouts and Zoom, that's where most of the millennials, most of the technology is headed today. And if I'm heard you properly, Brandie, you basically said that you had to accommodate and make the person feel at ease. So whatever their needs were is where you went with the business.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they don't do this on an everyday basis. Up till last week, a lot of us didn't do this on an everyday basis. And so being able to at least eliminate some of the stress ahead of time, and also be able to guide them through that. So if we are doing Zoom, being able to explain, okay, you're going to need to download an app. Do you want me to help you with that and walk you through it first, so that when we sit down to meet together, then, you're all set to go.
So don't assume that they understand because we understand.
Exactly.
So Dave, if we're going to talk about numbers, Brandie mentioned that you cut out about 20% of your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go over some of the big items, the big ticket items of what you were looking at before you executed and pulled the trigger on cutting your expenses?
Well, I'll tell you first off, and this was kind of cool, but we're teaching a Dave Ramsey class at our church.
Perfect timing.
I know. And so we were already kind of really digging deep into our budgets, both personally and for the business. And so we were already kind of on a cutting craze as it was. And then, of course, when this happened, then we really just had to kind of take that, a little deeper, and then kind of come up with some contingency plans for, okay, when we see that the numbers, are here, then we're going to have to cut these things. But main thing we didn't want to do was cut marketing. We did cut a little bit of marketing. I'll say that most of it was just frivolous things that are more conveniences, but not necessarily necessities. And so that's what we did. We went through everything that you run your bank statement, you run your, we use an American Express card for a lot of stuff. And we just ran both statements and we said, okay, is this item that we pay for every month, is it a need or a want? Is this a need or a want? And so we just kind of chipped away as many of the wants as we could. And a few of the needs that we realized we had maybe certain tools that kind of did the same things. We decided, okay, we're just going to go with this tool and get rid of that tool. It's amazing how all that stuff can add up, you know.
So,
pretty
so the
quickly.
major question, Dave, was, is this a necessity or a luxury?
Right.
Right. And when we ask ourselves that question, we get to the bottom line real fast. We have to ask ourselves, do we really desire whatever this application or whatever this tool or marketing, whatever it is, whatever the expense is, or is it something that's bringing us an evaluation? In other words, 3 times X. We spend X amount of dollars on something and it's bringing me back 3-fold, 4-fold, 5-fold, in which case we're not going to cut those type of expenses because that's a form of revenue.
Right.
Exactly.
And at the same time, we really took a look at our marketing and decided that we needed to become more strategic with our marketing, to where the different forms of marketing were all kind of feeding off each other. And again, with the idea of what's the message going to be going forward with what's happening right now in the economy, and then kind of gearing our marketing towards that. And so the timing really was kind of perfect because we were in the process of tweaking our marketing anyway. And so we've kind of adjusted our message a little bit. And so with the direction that we're going with the marketing, it eliminated a lot of those tools that we had been using back when we were just marketing in a whole bunch of different directions.
What was one of the biggest things that you realized when you're going over, and I'm assuming the class you're teaching is Financial Peace from Dave Ramsey, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're going over your Amex bill and you're looking at your expenses and you're learning, what was one of the biggest things? Did you find out you were paying for things that you weren't using, or were you paying for, maybe there was 2 different companies providing the same service and they were overlapping? Did you find any of that kind of stuff?
A lot of it, yes. And to really, in all honesty, like when we sat down together and we were going over everything, I was so mad at myself. I was like, how on earth have we had this subscription and this subscription, or we're paying for this? And so I was mad at myself for letting us get into the, I guess, the comfort of not analyzing it more every single month like we need to. You know, I mean, like we've got our bookkeeper that, you know, helps us close out our books every month, but actually being able to look at each item and investigate it, like on our personal expenses, oh my gosh. I think our Amazon purchases was the most, like it made me nauseous to my stomach to see that.
So what, and again, we don't want to talk in terms of dollars, but what percentage of your expenses might that have been? Just that one item, the Amazon? Was that like 2%, 5% of your expenses?
I think there were some months where it was pushing 10.
Wow.
It was because it's so convenient. Oh, you know what? We need one of these. Boom, boom, boom. You hit 2 buttons and it's ordered. And
that was just on the personal side. But so since we are all business owners and we not only own businesses, but from the personal side of it, you know, that is also another huge thing that I think is vitally important, is to be able to sit down and also go through all of those personal expenses and being able to identify, because at the end of the day, you know, with how the market has shifted so quickly, and, you know, we don't have a crystal ball to be able to say or determine how long this is going to last. And so
Right.
The outlook that we're taking is we're going to be taking a look at this from the worst case scenario, and we're going to adjust our sales accordingly. And if at the end of the day, everything ends up working out and it's very short term, then we're that much further ahead and we've saved
Right.
that much more money and put that into our profit. And if not, then we have enough to sustain through the long haul.
So either one of you, walk us through, what does a typical day look like now that we're 2 or 3 weeks into this coronavirus phase of our real estate businesses? Walk us through, what does an average day look like in your life from a time perspective or a time blocking perspective?
Well, I think we're kind of similar in the sense that, we wake up. I will say that we've started taking a morning walk each morning, which has been really nice. I haven't physically left the house in my car in 10 days. I'm somebody that has a little bit more of a weakened immune because I have an autoimmune. So being able to get outside, get some vitamin D and things like that is something that's important. So we've started taking a morning walk and an evening walk as well. But as far as like the day to day is concerned, we're still doing our team call challenges. So what we're doing is, instead of us meeting physically in the office, we're meeting via Zoom. And we are discussing, who we're going to be calling and touching base with. And then after our call challenge time is over, we're touching base and reporting our numbers for accountability. And then we're also reporting our wildly important goals for the week. So we call it our WIG. And so each of our team members is reporting what their main goal is for that week, and if they were able to accomplish their WIG from the week before. So we're doing that. We're also doing our group script practice and role play. I feel like it's really, really important for us all to be able to increase our skill because the chances are that, really, to be totally honest with you, the number of transactions that are going to be taking place are going to be probably a little bit lower for the foreseeable future. And so we need to make sure that the people that we're talking to, that we have the highest conversion rate possible. And so by practicing amongst each other, we're improving our skill. And, still doing our virtual listing appointments, virtual showings. Our other agents, they are going out and they are taking videos of vacant homes. We did get a 360 camera that we are using as well. So I've also had to kind of get knowledgeable on some of the more techie side of things. I've been being forced to get outside of my comfort zone in that sense.
Sure. So I kind of dislike the term business as usual because we are in different times right now, and we need to take this threat very serious medically for our lives, for our safety and health, well-being. So it doesn't sound to me that basically anything's changed from your perspective. I give you kudos to both of you because all I've heard you say is you're communicating probably at a higher level now than we did before this crisis started.
Well, I think it's really important to communicate at a higher level, especially when you, when you've got team members. There's fear can do a lot of things to people, and when there's uncertainty, when there's any kind of change in your day-to-day routine, it can cause uncertainty and it can cause fear. And so by being able to think about things rationally and have a plan in place, I was having a coaching conversation with one of my agents, and I said, okay, you need to go through your pipeline report and really look at what you've got going on, and the hardcore pipeline. And after talking to that agent, they were like, thank you very much, because this is giving me something to focus on. It's giving me something to do to be able to progress forward instead of wondering what I should be doing. It's giving them some action items and some steps to be able to take. But on the business side of things, we're still taking a lot of listings. I think we've got, I think over the last week, we've got like 13 listings that are getting ready to go live or have just gone live, like they're in the process of going live. We're still getting houses under contract, and buyers are still looking at, we've had some deals that have fallen through with some of the changes with the mortgage standards and different things like that, but
right,
business is still happening.
So, in Shift, Brandie, Gary and Jay write about that no matter how bad business gets, it never goes to zero. Never.
Exactly. Yep.
There's always, just open up your MLS and it'll tell you how many houses were listed in the last 24 hours by yourself, your brokerage, or the board, and that number's never zero.
Yep.
No matter what happens, people are still going to need to sell their home. There's still going to be people wanting to buy homes, regardless of the economy.
Now, are you noticing that there are less leads? However, the leads that are out there are more urgent? they're more serious buyers and sellers out there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've noticed, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have noticed, that there's been a little bit of a drop in the leads that are coming in. The conversations that we're having with those leads that are coming in, they're very good, solid conversations that we're having. And, you know, one of our biggest goals that we have is for us to be able to contact everybody that's in our database. And Rich, you know, taking point from one of your calls that we had last week was really building a bulletproof relationship with the people that are in our database is so critical right now. And being able to come from that contribution and say, like, how are you doing? We're calling to see how you're doing. And, you know, one example, I was calling, this is a client that I've been nurturing literally for like 6 years. Super, super sweet elderly couple, called just to check in and see how they were doing. And he just started crying. And he was choked up and he was like, I can't believe that you called to see how we're doing. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And, you know, sometimes people don't have connections or people that are reaching out to them. So that call that you're reaching out to make to your clients and to your database, you don't know how much you might be touching them by coming from contribution and truly caring.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was from Tony Zargami last week when she said, bulletproof the relationship. And it gave me the idea. I want to send off to either Jay or Gary with a little note. Maybe he can expand upon that, how important truly it is, because that was one of the things that led to Laura Hutt, who's online with us right now. On Friday, that topic came up again, and just talking from the heart. You know, today's call is not about real estate. Today's call is about you. How are you doing? And really sincerely mean that, Brandie. And the result was she took an $885,000 listing because she called and told them it wasn't about real estate. Yep. This came from a pipeline. The pipeline, the woman was supposed to be listing later on down, a couple months down the road. She just expedite. Don't put those people off. They need to know that you care about them too, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So get in your pipeline. I don't care if it's a deal in April, May, June, or July. You need to call them up, and they're people. They need to know that we care about them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So have you seen have you seen some drop off in business or cancellations? Are you starting to see a little pickup in that?
Yeah, we have seen some cancellations. We had one that on the day of closing, it was a contingency sale. So the buyers that were purchasing our listing, they had a contingency on the sale of their home. It was the day of closing. Everything was set to go, and the buyers on their house backed out. And so it was a trickle effect.
It's fascinating when that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why it fell through was just because that buyer was totally freaked out. It wasn't because they lost their job or anything like that. They just were scared of what was going on. But, you know, we have seen some fallout that's taken place. I think since Friday, we've had probably 3 or 4. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back through to get actual numbers, but it's been 3 or 4 different transactions that have, you know, fallen apart. And then in conjunction with that, we've had 3 more of our listings go under contract. So, you know, it's a
give and take.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You said something earlier. I don't know if it was Dave or Brandie. One of you said that uncertainty leads to fear or something along those lines. And absolutely, this is a proof positive. When a person is not sure of the unknown or the future, that breeds fear. So they like to see that stability. So the best thing to do at this point is the quality is in the quantity. The more pendings you have, the more times you get to the closing table. It's, you know, the biggest challenge is for the agent that only has 1 pending or 1 listing, and that one falls apart.
Right. And then they feel like their world is falling apart, and they might become paralyzed by that and think, oh my gosh, you know. And, you know, I literally just had a conversation with our team before our meeting here today. And, you know, we've got to be able to focus on the things that we can control. And the things that we can control, you know, are how we choose to look at things, you know, going back to the bold laws, and being able to understand that you can look at every situation as an opportunity. So you've got two choices. You can choose to look at this as an opportunity, or you can choose to look at it as doom and gloom and the world's coming to an end.
Right.
And how you choose to respond to that opportunity is going to determine the end result.
Yeah. And, you know, absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. And I just want to share another topic, because it was just, they spoke about it this morning on the Shift Pivot class with James Shaw. And he brought up, he said that market share, mind share now leads to market share later. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is those care calls now, not today, or probably not today, and yet down the road that will lead to market share. The people need to hear. And a lot of agents say, well, which ones? Everyone. You know, somebody once told me, which teeth do you brush? Only the ones you want to keep, right? So which customers do I call? Which people in my database do I call? Only the ones you want to keep. It's no different than brushing your teeth. If you want to keep all your teeth, you brush them all. If you want to keep all of the people in your database, you speak to all of them and tell them how much you care.
Yep.
Right.
So I'm going to open this up for some Q&A for David and Brandie, guys. So if you want to go on the chat line, if you just want to unmute yourself and ask your question, they'd love to hear from you. So we've got congratulations. Well, what questions do you have? They've closed nearly 200 units last year.
Bring it on. Bring on some questions.
What questions do you have in this market?
I've got one.
Sure.
What about the buyers that just feel better once they want to be inside the house, even though they're looking at a you know, video or something, and they really can't see the size of the room? I mean, some people need that visual. How do you overcome that?
Good question.
Yeah, so we actually just had this conversation today, for not only for buyers that are out there looking, but also for walkthroughs and things like that. So what we're advising for our team members is that we're really first and foremost trying to do everything virtually. Secondly, if that's not an option, and you know, either what we're trying to do is take the necessary precautions. So the agent showing up to the property ahead of time, you know, wearing gloves, wearing a mask, being able to secure themselves health, but also for the clients, being able to open up the house, make sure all the lights are on, and be able to let them go in and take a look at the property. If the agent does not feel comfortable, you know, they can sit in the car while the showing is taking place, keeping the safe social distance, and really just taking it from that standpoint. The other thing too is, you know, we're having conversations with our sellers. So if our sellers are not comfortable having people come through the home, then we're advising them to take it temporarily off the market. Because what we don't want to have happen is, you know, we're assuming that if a property is active on the market, that we're available and ready to either have our agents go and do a virtual showing, or if an actual face-to-face showing is going to be taking place, then that's the manner of which we're handling it.
I just thought of something that if somebody is going to be going to do an actual physical showing, if a drawer is open or a closet is open, so people don't have to keep touching and opening things, perhaps that might be a safe way also.
Exactly.
To keep them from touching, you know, things like that if it's already open for them.
Yep.
That would work.
Yeah, I think every situation is going to be different, whether it's a vacant home, whether it's a you know, somebody's living there. You're just going to kind of have to get creative, talk to your, you know, if it's your listing, or if, you know, you need to talk to the listing agent and just try to figure out the best way to handle it, because literally every situation will be different.
Yeah.
Great point. Great point. Who else has more questions, guys?
I have a question.
Sure.
Do we see anybody moving the inspection period and the closing date further out on sight unseen offers in the 30 to 45 day range for inspection and 45 to 75 day range for closing?
We personally haven't seen them pushed out that far, but we have been pushing our inspection periods and our loan approvals out and our closing dates out a little bit. But we're monitoring it, and being able to identify if we feel that the need is there to push it out further. So yes, but not to the extent of 30 to 45 days.
So Brandie, do you mean on just the buyer side, or are you doing this advising on both buyer and seller?
On both.
Yeah, because I'm getting close to getting a couple of sight unseen offers after 2 weeks of emails and calls, and a couple of them have asked me, well, if I want to see the size of the rooms in person, it may take 30 days because of government action. How about a 30 to 45 day inspection period?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I think that every circumstance and situation is going to be a little bit different for each person. You could still do the inspections, but you know, you can also do a special clause that says that it's contingent on the buyer being able to physically see the property and approve of it. You know, obviously getting the proper verbiage from, you know, our broker to make sure that it would be approved verbiage.
Hopefully that helps you out, Lou. Who else? Who's got the
Because
next
then,
question?
can I just kind of piggyback on that?
Sure.
What you're doing is if you're going ahead and doing the inspections, then you're eliminating other potential pitfalls of having it fall through, right? So the more contingencies you can get past, then the more that, you know, buyer and seller are going to feel like, okay, this is good. And the other thing is that if you go ahead and do the inspections, what if there's findings on the house that would warrant them to walk away anyways? Then the buyer's not, you know, having to pay for a plane ticket to come down specifically to see that. So just a little tidbit.
I think that you still do your inspections, but if the buyer wants to see the house in person and the seller wants to sell in an uncertain time, I think an extended inspection period on an as-is makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So David, Brandie, let me ask, so when you're on the listing side and the co-broke on that is asking for a contingency, which you grant, when the contingency is met, are you asking for an addendum to eliminate it from the contract, or you just let the original, well, how are you handling that?
We always, and have always, as soon as a contingency is up, we get an addendum that specifies that contingency is being removed and that all other terms are remaining the same.
That's a great, guys, that's a big point, great golden nugget, because even if the contingency is expired, some people they don't understand what that means. And a week later, a day later, a minute later, they want to go back and renege or whatever. So I think it's just a matter of clarity, is what I'm hearing you say right now. So
Yeah.
we got time for probably one or two more questions, guys.
What's that say? I can't read it.
There's a question from Valerie. Have you changed your print and gift marketing strategies? If so, please give some specifics. I'm going to let you answer that one since you do.
Changed your print.
Are you talking about like our print marketing?
Yes,
I would imagine so.
I am. Sorry, it took me a minute to get to the button. Yes, just your basic, you know, your mailers or any, and I know you guys do a lot of gifts, which probably require physically being there. I was just wondering how that has changed.
Right.
Yeah, for specifics, in terms of like closing gifts, one of the closing gifts that we give is the sign, which is kind of easy because we can leave it on the front porch and they can
It's
leave
like
it.
a welcome sign.
And they can leave it there so nobody has to touch it. In terms of print, I mean, we are actually changing up our marketing strategy a little bit, so our message is changing. But in terms of getting away from, are you talking about in terms of getting away from print because you don't want something being delivered to their home?
Basically, yeah, I know you're doing a lot of mailers and stuff, and I know there's the, you know, the physical touching of the flyers, and if you're still seeing that that's maybe more important than it used to be for you know, in this situation, or less important.
I really don't know if it's more or less. I do know that we're doing it, and we're still, that's part of our marketing plan. Our farming is the mailers. Matter of fact, I just launched 2,000 that are being printed right now that should be going out in the next 4 or 5 days.
Okay, thanks.
One of the things I could speak to, because David and Brandie had helped sell several of my properties within the last 90 days. I'm just going to share. I've never heard or felt love and care the way that David and Brandie did after one of our closings for me and my wife. They sent me a personal experience as opposed to a gift that you can see or touch. It was a chef experience. I'm assuming they know how dear food is to me and cooking. I love to cook. So the chefs came to my house, my new residence, and they cooked an entire meal from beginning to end. It was a five course meal, which I got to choose the menu. It was one of the most amazing experiences ever that I've ever seen. So, and that told me a lot about who the two of you are and how much you care about my wife and myself and my family. So I will tell you, that's an experience that nobody can ever take away from me, that will live with me for the next 20, 30, 40 years, as long as I live. So I will say they do things out of the box. Can you talk to us a little bit about when I first became interim OP, probably about 18 months ago or so, where I was in the office in Claremont. It was 2018. And we knew each other, but didn't know each other to the extent we do today. And I walked in downstairs and I saw there was pies. There was 6 foot high and there were rows of them, hundreds of pies. And I was like, where are these from? And you had people scheduled coming into the office to pick up pies right before the holidays. Can you walk everybody through that, what that system looks like, guys?
Well, first I'll say that we probably won't be doing the chef thing for a while and the pie thing for a while, but hopefully we can do that soon again.
So for the pie, you know, I think there's a lot of agents that do that, but basically what we do is we send out an email to all of our past clients and give them the opportunity to RSVP for a pie. And then for our lead generation time, we're actually touching base and contacting them. It gives us a reason to be able to reach out to them, have a conversation. We totally took this idea from one of the other agents from one of the other webinars that we saw, where we say, you know, if you can whip us up a referral, we'll throw in a can of whipped cream for you, and it actually works. So the past few years we've gotten at least 3 or 4 different referrals from our clients. But once we get our finalized number, then we order them from Costco, and I think they're like $5 or $6 a pie. We order them ahead of time, and then we go and pick them up, and you know, we wrap them up nice and neat for the clients. And we actually started putting a little sticker on the cover of the pie, and the response that we get from our clients is great, because the pies are like ginormous. They're really, really big, and it also becomes a conversation starter for their family that are generally they're sharing dessert with. So
that was pretty big when I first walked in and saw. I mean, I'm 6'1", and they were at least as tall as me, the piles, and there was rows of them. So
yeah,
it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So in summary, what would you like to each one of you wrap up? Give everybody just one point. What would you be focusing on, Dave and Brandie? One nugget right now.
Go first. Figure out what you're going to figure out what you want to say to people with what's going on right now in the economy. Like, come up with a script, maybe work with whoever you coach with or you script practice with, but figure out how you want to have the conversations go, because especially with buyers, that's just my personal feeling, that's going to be the difficult conversations in the upcoming weeks. I think we're probably going to see, and again, I'm just guessing, but I feel like we're going to probably see a good push of sellers in the coming months that are going to feel like they need to sell. But I feel like there's going to be kind of a pullback on the buyer side transactions, because buyers are going to be a little fearful if, you know, is the market going to drop? Are the prices going to go down? I don't want to pay at the top of the market. So have your talking points in place and know exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to walk people through that.
Great piece of advice, David.
I would say that do not let what is taking place right now distract you. It's very easy to get distracted, and I would say, you know, keeping a positive mindset and being able to move forward. Your business itself may go backwards a little bit, and that's okay. But what's going to continue to move forward is your wisdom and your skill and your knowledge going through this. And every single season that I've been through that's been a really difficult season, I have always come out at the end of that season better and more refined. And so I want to just encourage everybody that this is temporary and we will get through it. You know, I was talking to the team today and sharing with them, you know, when a herd of cows see a storm that's coming, the cows will naturally and instinctively try to outrun the storm. And what ultimately ends up happening is they end up staying in the storm longer because they're trying to outrun it. But buffaloes, on the other hand, they look at the storm, they see it coming, and they turn and they run straight into the storm. And so what happens is they end up coming through the storm faster. They each are in the storm. It's still a little bit tumultuous and difficult, but if you run through and you run towards it and don't be scared of it, you'll get through it faster.
So given the choice, would you rather be the cow or the buffalo? We'd rather be the buffalo.
We are going to be the buffalo. We are the buffalo.
There we go. Guys, so for those of you who don't know, Dave and Brandie are in our homegrown Claremont office. They're one of our elite partners, mega agents. So if you're in Spring Hill or if you're in Citrus, I can't think of better people to entrust your business to as a referral partner. We appreciate you so much, guys. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You've given us so many golden nuggets here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, take care. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.